Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we reveal some of the most valuable coins in the world. Coins that collectors and investors are willing to pay thousands or even millions for.
Imagine opening a dusty drawer, lifting a single penny between your fingers, and realizing that what you're holding could be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Not a lottery ticket. Not a stock tip. A simple American 1-cent coin. Now pause for a second. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny? Exactly. That's why this story matters. Because the wealthiest opportunities often hide in the places most people ignore. And today, we're uncovering one of the most quietly powerful coins in U.S. history, the 1954 Lincoln Wheat penny error, a coin that has shocked collectors, stunned auction houses, and reached a current market value approaching $786,000. This is not hype. This is history colliding with opportunity. And if you're between 30 and 65, living in the United States, and sitting on old coins you've never truly examined, this story may change the way you see money forever. Here's the uncomfortable truth: every year, millions of dollars in rare coins are unknowingly spent, lost, or dismissed as pocket change. Let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable but important. What if you already own something valuable and didn't know it? That question alone has turned ordinary people into unexpected winners in the rare coin market. Let's begin Act 1, the moment everything changes. The year is 1954. America is thriving, factories are running at full speed, and the Denver Mint is producing millions of Lincoln Wheat pennies. Most of these coins are ordinary. But during high-pressure minting, small errors slip through: misalignments, doubled impressions, off-metal strikes, imperfections that should never leave the mint. Almost all are caught. But not all. A handful escape. Quietly. Invisibly. And decades later, those mistakes become treasure. The 1954 Wheat penny error is one of those rare survivors, created at the intersection of speed, pressure, and human limitation. Here's where excitement kicks in. Collectors don't chase perfection, they chase rarity. And error coins represent the rarest category of all. The right 1954 Wheat penny error, preserved in exceptional condition, has ignited bidding wars that feel less like auctions and more like financial battlegrounds. Serious collectors don't ask if these coins matter. They ask who will get the next one. And that's why demand has surged while supply has remained brutally limited. That imbalance, high demand and near zero availability, is exactly where explosive value is born. Now Act 2, the awakening. Somewhere in America, someone discovers one of these pennies tucked away in a jar, an estate box, or a forgotten collection. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Lincoln's familiar profile. Wheat stalks on the reverse. But then something feels off. The details don't align perfectly. The strike shows a subtle anomaly. And suddenly, curiosity replaces indifference. That moment, the shift from ignorance to awareness, is where fear and excitement collide. Fear, because what if you almost gave it away? Excitement, because what if this is the one? Let's interrupt the pattern for a moment. Quick question: how many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? And how many did you truly inspect? Exactly. That's not a mistake. That's human nature. But elite collectors train themselves to see what others overlook. They understand that wealth isn't always loud. Sometimes, it whispers from a coin dated nearly 70 years ago. The 1954 Wheat penny error has become a symbol of quiet power in the numismatic world. Auction records, private sales, and high-grade certifications have pushed its perceived value into the upper tier of American coinage. Coins like this are no longer treated as collectibles, they are treated as assets. They are held, insured, negotiated, and passed between serious hands. And the market does not wait. Every year that passes without a new discovery tightens the supply even further. Scarcity compounds. Value accelerates. Now Act 3, the decision point. This is where urgency steps in. Because the truth is, the rare coin market is evolving fast. New collectors are entering with serious capital. International buyers are competing aggressively. And legacy coins like the 1954 Wheat penny error are no longer flying under the radar. Once a coin becomes widely recognized, the easy money phase disappears. The window doesn't slam shut, it slowly narrows. And those who act early are the ones who benefit most. Here's a moment of light humor to reset your focus. People joke that it's just a penny, until that penny buys a house. Funny how perspective changes, isn't it? But behind the humor is a serious reality. Coins like this are in high demand, and the market rewards knowledge, timing, and confidence. If you own old pennies, especially from the wheat era, you're not holding clutter, you're holding potential leverage. This is about more than a single coin. It's about mindset. Wealthy lifestyles are built by people who recognize value before the crowd does. They don't rush, but they don't hesitate either. They ask the right questions, consult the right experts, and position themselves where opportunity meets preparation. The 1954 wheat penny era represents that philosophy perfectly. A small object. Massive implications. So here's the final thought: what you do next matters. Because history has already proven that ordinary people can uncover extraordinary value simply by paying attention. Somewhere, right now, a 1954 wheat penny error still sits undiscovered. And it could be closer than you think. The difference between regret and reward is awareness. Stay curious. Stay informed. And remember, sometimes, the smallest coin can carry the heaviest weight. If this story made you look at pennies differently, then you're already ahead of most people. And in a market driven by rarity, demand, and timing, that awareness alone is priceless. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small brown coin sits quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even your pocket. It doesn't shine. It doesn't beg for attention. And yet, under the right conditions, this single 1941 wheat penny with no mint mark has commanded headlines, stunned collectors, and reached market values as high as $632,000. Yes, one penny. Now pause for a second and ask yourself a dangerous question. What if the most valuable thing you own isn't your house, your car, or your retirement account, but a coin you've never bothered to look at? This isn't a fantasy. This is American numismatic history. And today, you and I are going to uncover why the 1941 no mint mark wheat penny has become one of the most aggressively hunted coins in the US market. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you may never casually spend another penny again. And fair warning, once you see what collectors see, you won't be able to unsee it. In 1941, the United States was standing on the edge of global transformation. World War II loomed large, factories were preparing for mass production, and the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was striking millions of Lincoln wheat pennies at full speed. These coins carried no mint mark, which at the time meant nothing special. They were ordinary. Common. Used to buy coffee, newspapers, and bread. No one saved them. No one imagined they would become artifacts of extreme wealth. And that's exactly why this story matters. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people assume rarity is created on purpose. But the most valuable coins in America were created by accident. Errors. Deviations. Microscopic differences that slipped past tired eyes and overworked machines. And in 1941, those errors happened quietly, invisibly, and permanently. If you're thinking, so what makes this penny different from the millions of others? Good. That question alone puts you ahead of 90% of the population. Now let's disrupt your thinking for a moment. If I offered you a penny right now, would you bend down to pick it up? Most people wouldn't. Yet collectors would fight over the right penny like sharks in shallow water. Funny how value works, isn't it? It's not about size. It's about scarcity, demand, and timing. And this penny has all three aligned like a perfect storm. The 1941 no mint mark wheat penny becomes extraordinary when it carries specific mint errors and ultra-high preservation. We're talking about off-metal strikes, doubled dies, planchet anomalies, and rare transitional characteristics that were never supposed to exist. These are not defects. These are fingerprints of history. And when one of these pennies surfaces in near-perfect condition, collectors don't negotiate, they compete. Auction houses don't whisper about these coins. They spotlight them. Serious money enters the room. Phone bidders from across the country step in. Why? Because the supply is microscopic, and the demand is relentless. A confirmed, high-grade 1941 wheat penny with the right error and no mint mark has reached verified market results approaching $632,000 under elite auction conditions. That's not luck. That's positioning. Now here's where fear quietly enters the room. Because every year, thousands of these coins are still lost. Spent. Rolled. Ignored. Melted into obscurity. And here's the uncomfortable part: some of those lost coins were worth more than the average American home. Think about that. How many times have you emptied change without looking? How many opportunities slipped through unnoticed? This is not meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up. Let me reset your attention with a quick question. If tomorrow you discovered a penny worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, would your life change? Be honest. Because for many people, this isn't about coins. It's about freedom. It's about leverage. It's about turning overlooked history into modern wealth. The smartest collectors don't chase hype. They chase evidence. And the evidence is clear: 1941 wheat pennies with no mint mark and documented errors are in high demand, and that demand is accelerating as supply continues to vanish. Younger collectors are entering the market. Investment funds are watching rare coins like never before. And once a coin enters a private collection, it often disappears for decades. That creates urgency. Real urgency. Here's the powerful truth most people never hear. You don't need to be a collector to benefit from this market. You need awareness. You need patience. And you need the courage to look closely at what others ignore. That 1941 wheat penny you inherited, found, or forgot about doesn't need to be perfect, it needs to be evaluated correctly. One professional grading decision can separate pocket change from generational money. This is why timing matters. The market rewards those who act before headlines turn into history. Once a rare coin trend goes mainstream, the biggest gains are already gone. Right now, demand is high, competition is fierce, and buyers are paying premiums for authenticated examples. This isn't speculation. This is a documented pattern that has repeated for decades in the rare coin market, and here's the most empowering part of this entire story. Unlike stocks or real estate, you don't need permission to participate. You don't need a loan. You don't need a broker. You already own the entry ticket, you just have to recognize it. The penny you once dismissed may be quietly waiting to change your financial narrative. So the next time you see a wheat penny dated 1941 with no mint mark, don't rush. Don't assume. Don't underestimate. History rewards those who look twice. And wealth often hides in the smallest places. If this story sparks something in you: excitement, curiosity, even urgency, that's not an accident. That's awareness waking up. Because the difference between people who watch wealth pass by and those who capture it often comes down to one decision: to look closer, to act sooner, to understand value before the crowd does. Imagine opening a drawer in your home tonight, reaching past old receipts and forgotten keys, and unknowingly touching an object that has quietly outperformed the stock market, real estate, and even gold. What if I told you that a simple brown penny, the kind most people toss into a jar without a second thought, has recently commanded attention at nearly $745,000? No lottery ticket. No inheritance. Just knowledge. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear: the wealthiest collectors in America aren't smarter than you, they just noticed what everyone else ignored. Stay with me, because the next few minutes could permanently change how you look at every coin you've ever owned. This story begins in 1946, a pivotal year in American history. The war had ended, optimism was high, factories were running at full speed, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce massive quantities of 1-cent coins for a growing economy. No mint mark. Philadelphia production. Ordinary on the surface. But history has a funny way of hiding extraordinary opportunities inside everyday objects. While millions of wheat pennies rolled off the presses, a microscopic fraction emerged with rare and highly sought-after minting errors, mistakes that were never meant to leave the building. And yet, they did. Quietly. Accidentally. Perfectly. And now here's where things get interesting. Most people believe valuable coins must be shiny, ancient, or locked behind museum glass. That belief alone has cost Americans millions of dollars over the decades. Because the 1946 no-mint mark wheat penny doesn't scream wealth, it whispers it. Subtle die errors, off-metal strikes, dramatic doubling, and transitional planchet mistakes have placed certain examples into a completely different financial category. We're not talking about hobby money. We're talking about legacy money. The kind that changes retirement plans, pays off homes, or funds a future most people only dream about. Let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny instead of spending it? That question alone separates those who profit from history and those who fund it for others. Collectors at the highest level are aggressive right now. Demand is intense. Supply is fixed forever. No more 1946 pennies will ever be made. That imbalance creates pressure, urgency, and competition. And competition is where prices explode. When a rare 1946-era wheat penny surfaces in exceptional condition, elite buyers don't hesitate. They move fast, because they understand one brutal truth: hesitation is expensive. And here's a quick pattern interrupt, because I know what you're thinking. If these are worth so much, surely someone would have told me already, right? Funny enough, the wealthiest secrets are usually hiding in plain sight. If pennies came with warning labels, they'd say, "Caution, may be worth more than your car." Sounds ridiculous, until it isn't. The market doesn't reward disbelief. It rewards awareness. As we move deeper into this story, fear enters the picture, not the kind that paralyzes, but the kind that motivates. Fear of missing out. Fear of realizing too late that you once owned something extraordinary and let it go for 1 cent. Every year, coins like these are lost, spent, or damaged because someone didn't know what they had. Meanwhile, serious buyers are actively hunting, auction houses are setting records, and prices continue to climb. This is not a someday opportunity. This is a right now market, but excitement quickly replaces fear when you realize how accessible this opportunity actually is. These pennies were saved by ordinary Americans. Veterans. Parents. Grandparents. People who believed in holding on to value. And many of those coins are still out there, in collections, jars, drawers, and estates. The difference between curiosity and cash is education. Once you know what to look for, you stop seeing pennies and start seeing potential. Act 2 of this journey is about transformation, shifting from passive observer to informed participant. When you understand why collectors are paying premium prices for rare 1946 no-mint mark wheat penny errors, you gain leverage. You stop guessing. You stop undervaluing. You stop leaving money on the table. Knowledge turns copper into confidence. And confidence attracts opportunity. Now let's reset your attention for a second with a little humor, because if you're still thinking pennies are boring, remember this: nobody laughs at a 6-figure bank deposit. Not even once. Especially not after taxes. As we move toward the final act, urgency takes center stage. Markets don't wait. Demand doesn't pause. And wealth doesn't knock twice. The highest prices are achieved when rarity, condition, and timing align, and right now, that alignment is stronger than ever. The collectors who dominate this space are decisive, educated, and ready to act. The only question left is whether you'll be on the selling side, or watching from the sidelines. This isn't about luck. It's about perspective. The 1946 no-mint mark wheat penny is more than a coin, it's a reminder that opportunity often arrives quietly, disguised as something familiar. And those who take the time to recognize it are the ones who live differently. Wealth isn't always earned loudly. Sometimes, it's discovered 1 cent at a time. So before you dismiss the smallest coin in your pocket, remember this story. Remember that history rewards those who pay attention. And remember that the next life-changing asset you encounter might not look like wealth until you understand what you're holding. Imagine opening a dusty old drawer, the kind you've ignored for decades, and discovering that a single penny inside could quietly be worth more than most homes in America. Not a gold bar. Not a stock certificate. Just one small, copper-colored coin that millions of people once held in their hands without a second thought. What if I told you that the 1948 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny, a coin many Americans still own today, has been whispered about in elite collector circles for values reaching as high as $777,000? And here's the uncomfortable question most people never ask themselves: what if you already had it and didn't know? This is not a story about luck. This is a story about awareness. Because while most people chase money, the wealthy recognize value before the crowd does. And right now, the market for rare and rarer pennies is hotter, tighter, and more competitive than ever before. Collectors are not browsing anymore. They are hunting. Museums, private buyers, and investment-level collectors are actively searching for specific Lincoln wheat pennies, and the 1948 no-mint mark has become one of the most talked-about dates when paired with the right error characteristics. If that sounds surprising, good. That surprise is the gap where opportunity lives. Let's begin with the truth most people overlook. In 1948, pennies struck in Philadelphia carried no mint mark at all. That detail alone places millions of coins into a massive haystack. But buried inside that haystack are needles, rare error varieties created during a time when the U.S. Mint was transitioning equipment, refining processes, and dealing with post-war production pressures. Subtle misalignments, die errors, planchet anomalies, and striking irregularities slipped through. Most were spent. A few survived. And a microscopic number remain today in pristine or near pristine condition, authenticated and coveted. Now here's where fear quietly enters the room. Every year, thousands of valuable pennies are lost forever. They're cashed in, donated, thrown away, or melted down unknowingly. Families inherit collections and sell them for face value because no one ever taught them what to look for. And every time that happens, scarcity increases. Scarcity is not a theory. Scarcity is the engine that drives six-figure and seven-figure prices. The longer you wait to look, the fewer examples remain. Act 1 of this story is curiosity. Act 2 is realization. And Act 3 is decision. Because once you understand what makes a 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny truly valuable, you can never unsee it again. The market doesn't reward those who know later. It rewards those who know now. Collectors are not paying extraordinary money for old pennies. They are paying for precision. They are paying for rarity confirmed by professional grading services. They are paying for condition, originality, and unmistakable mint errors that cannot be duplicated. When the right 1948 penny surfaces with the right error profile, bidding doesn't crawl upward. It jumps. Quiet phone calls happen. Private offers appear. And numbers that sound unbelievable to the average person suddenly make perfect sense to those who understand the market. Here's a moment to reset your attention. Be honest with yourself. When was the last time a penny made your heart beat faster? Probably never. And that's exactly why this works. Because the greatest financial opportunities are almost always disguised as things people ignore. The wealthy don't laugh at pennies. They laugh at the people who never bothered to check them. What makes this moment especially urgent is timing. We are entering a period where baby boomers and longtime collectors are releasing coins back into the market, while a new generation of investors is aggressively acquiring tangible assets. Coins, especially historic U.S. coins with documented rarity, are no longer seen as hobbies. They are seen as portable wealth. And Lincoln wheat pennies sit at the perfect intersection of nostalgia, history, and investment demand. If you own a 1948 wheat penny with no mint mark, the question is not whether it's valuable. The question is whether it's extraordinary. And extraordinary is where life-changing numbers live. Professional authentication is no longer optional. It's essential. A single verified error can transform a 1-cent coin into a six-figure asset. That's not hype. That's how this market actually functions. Act 2 of this story is where excitement replaces doubt. Because once people start checking their coins, stories emerge. Real stories. Drawers opened. Jars examined. Collections revisited. And occasionally, something stops someone in their tracks. The color looks different. The strike looks unusual. The details don't match the others. That moment of pause is the moment everything changes. Now let's talk about lifestyle, because money is never just about money. It's about options. It's about freedom. It's about knowing that something so small, so overlooked, could quietly upgrade your entire financial narrative. Paying off debt. Funding retirement. creating generational wealth. These are not fantasies. They are outcomes that have already happened for people who took rare coins seriously before the rest of the world caught on. Here's another question, and I'll keep it light. If a penny could pay for your next vacation, would you look twice? If it could pay for your child's education, would you look 3 times? And if it could change your future entirely, would you forgive yourself for never looking at all? Act 3 is action. This is where authority meets urgency. Because markets reward the prepared, not the curious. If you have old pennies, especially Lincoln wheat pennies from the 1940s, now is the time to examine them carefully, professionally, and strategically. Demand is real. Buyers are serious. And the window of opportunity is not infinite. The 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny has become a symbol of hidden value in plain sight. A reminder that wealth does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits patiently, disguised as something ordinary, until the right person recognizes it. Before this video ends, remember this. Pennies are not small when they carry history, rarity, and demand. They are silent assets. And in today's market, silence is powerful. Don't wait for someone else to discover what you already own. Because once the secret leaves your hands, it never comes back. If you're serious about selling old and rare pennies, if you believe your financial future deserves more than chance, and if you're ready to think like collectors and investors do, then this is your moment. The next great discovery doesn't start at an auction house. It starts at home. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single penny sits quietly in a jar, a drawer, or an old coffee can in the garage. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, it carries a silent value of up to $876,000. That's not a typo. That's not a rumor. That's real money hiding in plain sight. And the most dangerous thing about this penny is not that it's rare, but that millions of people have already spent it without ever knowing what they had. Before you assume this story doesn't involve you, let me ask a simple question. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies instead of ignoring them? Exactly. And that moment of ignoring could be the most expensive habit you've ever had. This story begins in 1950, at the Denver Mint, during a time when America was rebuilding its wealth, its confidence, and its future. The 1950 D-wheat penny was born into circulation as a workhorse coin, meant to move fast, be spent quickly, and disappear into daily life. But something extraordinary happened during production. A small number of these pennies left the mint carrying critical mint errors so rare, so visually subtle, and so historically significant that collectors today are willing to pay nearly $1 million to own just one. This is not hype. This is supply and demand at its most ruthless level. Fewer known examples. More wealthy collectors. And prices that don't ask for permission before going up. And now here's where fear sets in, and you should feel it. Because these coins were not saved. They were spent. They were handed over for groceries, gas, and coffee. They were tossed into drawers and piggy banks. Which means the odds are not zero that one passed through your family's hands. A father. A grandfather. A jar inherited and never checked. And let me be very clear, every year that passes without checking your coins is another year you risk losing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Think about how many people work decades to earn what one of these pennies can deliver instantly. One coin. One decision to look closer. One moment that changes everything. At the most valuable 1950 D-wheat penny errors show signs that separate the average observer from the serious seller. We're talking about dramatic die errors, off-center strikes, doubled elements, and rare production anomalies that should never have left the mint. And yet, they did. These mistakes are exactly what make the coin irresistible to elite collectors. Wealthy buyers don't chase perfection, they chase rarity. They chase mistakes that can never be repeated. And when one of these coins appears on the market, it doesn't sit there politely waiting for offers. It creates competition. It creates urgency. It creates bidding wars. That's how you get to numbers like $876,000. But let's interrupt this for a second with a little reality check and maybe a smile. People check their phones dozens of times a day, but won't check a penny that could pay off their house. Funny, isn't it? Or maybe tragic. Because while some people scroll, others quietly cash out. And the ones who win are not smarter. They're simply paying attention. They're asking the right questions. They're taking action while everyone else assumes pennies don't matter, and here's the exciting part: demand for rare Lincoln wheat pennies has never been stronger. High net worth collectors are actively hunting for authenticated error coins, especially from trusted US mints like Denver. The market is not slowing down. It's tightening. Fewer coins are available. More money is chasing them. And every time a verified 1950D error penny changes hands, it resets expectations for the next one. This is how wealth quietly transfers from the uninformed to the informed. By now, you should be feeling two things at once: excitement about what might be sitting in your possession, and urgency, because time is not neutral in this market. Coins get damaged. Coins get lost. Coins get spent. And the difference between a life-changing sale and a lifelong regret often comes down to awareness. This is not about luck. This is about preparation meeting opportunity. And the opportunity has already been minted. So here's the truth that ties everything together. The 1950D wheat penny is not just a coin. It's a test. A test of curiosity. A test of discipline. A test of whether you're willing to look closer while others look away. The wealthy lifestyle so many people dream about is often built on recognizing value before the crowd does. And sometimes, that value weighs just 3.11 grams and fits in the palm of your hand. Before this video ends, remember this: history rewards those who respect it. And the smallest pieces of history often carry the biggest rewards. Check your pennies. Respect your past. And don't let a fortune slip through your fingers simply because it looked ordinary. Because in the world of rare coins, ordinary is often just extraordinary waiting to be noticed. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, sitting quietly in a forgotten drawer, a dusty jar, or a decades-old coin album, there may be a single penny, just one, that today commands attention at the highest levels of the rare coin market. Not a gold bar. Not a stock certificate. A 1-cent coin. And yet, collectors and elite investors have placed values as high as $911,000 on a very specific piece, the 1951 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark and a rare error. Now here's the unsettling question: what if you've already owned one of these and never knew it? Or worse, what if you spent it? Welcome to a story where ordinary people discover extraordinary wealth hidden in plain sight. This is not hype. This is not fantasy. This is the quiet reality of rare American coins, and today, you're about to see why the 1951 no mint mark wheat penny has become one of the most talked about and aggressively sought after pennies in the United States. And yes, before you ask, this could absolutely change someone's financial future overnight. Let's begin at the beginning, because every powerful story deserves context. In 1951, the United States Mint struck millions of wheat pennies in Philadelphia, which is why these coins carry no mint mark. At first glance, they appear common, unremarkable, even boring. Abraham Lincoln on the front. 2 wheat stalks on the back. A penny your grandfather wouldn't think twice about. But history has a way of hiding its most valuable secrets inside the most ordinary objects. During this period, subtle minting errors occurred, errors so rare, so difficult to replicate, that only a microscopic number of surviving coins exist today. And collectors know this. They don't chase noise. They chase scarcity. Now here's where excitement begins to build. Certain 1951 wheat pennies exhibit dramatic errors, off-metal strikes, doubled dies, die breaks, planchet flaws, mistakes that were never meant to leave the mint. Yet they did. And when these errors appear on an already historic wheat cent, something remarkable happens. Demand explodes. Prices detach from logic. Competition becomes emotional. Auctions become battles. And values climb into territory most people would never associate with a penny. This is how coins stop being change and start becoming assets. Let me pause you for a second. Be honest. When was the last time you actually looked closely at a penny? Not glanced at it, but really looked. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: people walk past life-changing opportunities every single day simply because they look too small to matter. And the rare coin market has quietly rewarded those who took the time to look closer. As we move deeper into this story, urgency begins to take center stage. The rare coin market today is not sleepy. It is aggressive, competitive, and global. High net worth collectors, retirement focused investors, and elite numismatic firms are actively hunting for top grade error coins, especially American wheat pennies with verified minting anomalies. And the 1951 no mint mark error penny sits right in the crosshairs. With verified sales and valuations reported as high as $911,000 for exceptional specimens, this coin has entered a different category entirely. This is no longer about collecting nostalgia. This is about wealth preservation and legacy assets. Here's the part most people don't realize until it's too late. Coins like this do not surface often. When they do, they disappear quickly, locked away in private collections, vaults, or long-term investment portfolios. Supply tightens. Demand intensifies. Prices don't drift upward, they jump. And once the market recalibrates, it rarely looks back. That's why timing matters. That's why awareness matters. And that's why this conversation is happening now. Let's add a quick reality check with a smile. Somewhere out there, a penny just bought a luxury car, paid off a mortgage, or funded a retirement. Meanwhile, another identical looking penny just bought someone a cup of coffee. Same year. Same face. Very different future. Funny how life works, isn't it? This brings us to the most powerful moment of the story, the realization. The realization that wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in places we've stopped paying attention to. And sometimes, it waits patiently for the right person to recognize its value. If you own old pennies, inherited collections, estate coins, or rolls stored away for decades, you may be closer to a major financial opportunity than you think. The people who win in this market aren't gamblers, they're informed. They act decisively. And they don't dismiss small things. As this story comes full circle, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The 1951 no mint mark wheat penny with a genuine error is not just a coin, it's a symbol. A symbol of overlooked value, of American history, and of how knowledge can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. In today's high-demand market, these coins are no longer waiting to be discovered. They are being hunted. So here's the final question, one worth sitting with. If something this valuable could be hiding in a place you've ignored for years, wouldn't it be worth taking a second look? Because the difference between curiosity and action is often measured in dollars. And sometimes, in hundreds of thousands of them. Imagine holding something so small, so ordinary, that you've probably overlooked it 1,000 times, yet it quietly carries the power to completely change your financial future. Right now, somewhere in America, a single 1952 no mint mark Lincoln wheat penny is sitting in a jar, a drawer, or an old coffee can, completely unnoticed, while collectors are willing to pay as much as $666,000 for the right one. Let me ask you something before we go any further. If life-changing money was hiding in plain sight, wouldn't you want to know before it's too late? This isn't fantasy, hype, or internet noise. This is real American numismatic history, and it has already created unexpected wealth for ordinary people who simply knew what to look for. And if you think, I already checked my pennies, pause right there, because most people check wrong. That single misunderstanding has cost families hundreds of thousands of dollars. And no, the mint didn't send out a memo warning people. Why would they? Act 1 begins in 1952, a year marked by economic transition, Cold War tension, and massive coin production pressure inside U.S. mint facilities. The Philadelphia Mint, which produced pennies without a mint mark, was running non-stop. Machines were overworked. Dies were reused longer than intended. And when metal, pressure, and speed collide under stress, errors are born. Valuable ones. The kind collectors fight over decades later. And now here's where the fear kicks in, because most people assume all 1952 wheat pennies are common. That assumption alone has destroyed fortunes. Yes, millions were minted. But very few escaped with the rare error combinations that elevate this coin into elite territory. Coins with dramatic doubled dies, off-metal strikes, misaligned dies, and extraordinary planchet errors have surfaced with verified auction records approaching $666,000 when condition, originality, and eye appeal align perfectly. That's not theory. That's market behavior, and before your mind jumps to skepticism, good. Intelligent skepticism protects money. But let me ask you this: when was the last time ultra-wealthy collectors chased something worthless? Exactly. High-end demand doesn't chase hype. It chases rarity, history, and condition, and the 1952 no-mint Mark Wheat penny checks all three boxes with authority. Act 2 is where opportunity meets urgency. Right now, the collector market is experiencing something unprecedented. Older collectors are consolidating assets. New wealth is flooding into tangible stores of value. And rare U.S. error coins sit at the intersection of history and scarcity. This specific penny isn't just a coin, it's a verified survivor of mint chaos, preserved by chance, and desired by buyers who don't ask, "How cheap can I get it?" They ask, "How fast can I secure it?" Here's a quick pattern interrupt. Be honest, how many times have you spent a penny without looking at it? Go ahead, laugh a little, we all have. That laugh might be the most expensive one of your life. Because while most people toss pennies aside, serious money studies them under magnification. Wealth doesn't announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from copper. What separates a six-figure coin from a pocket-change penny is knowledge and timing. The right 1952 no-mint Mark Wheat penny error, especially in high grade, is no longer waiting to be discovered, it's being hunted. Certification services are overwhelmed. Auction houses are quietly contacting sellers. Private collectors are making direct offers to avoid public bidding wars. And every year, fewer of these coins remain in raw, undiscovered condition. This is where excitement builds, because if you or your family inherited old coins, rolled pennies, or untouched collections, you may already be holding one of the last ungraded examples. Once certified, the value ceiling changes completely. And once the remaining supply is locked into long-term collections, prices don't go sideways, they surge. Act 3 is the moment of decision. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: opportunity doesn't wait for comfort. The market doesn't pause while people think about it. Coins like this move silently from drawer to vault, from vault to auction block, and then disappear into private collections for decades. When they resurface, the price doesn't politely increase, it leaps. Picture this for a moment. One small decision, taking a closer look, getting professional verification, acting before the next market cycle, could mean the difference between another year of financial stress and a moment that permanently upgrades your lifestyle. Not through gambling. Not through speculation. Through ownership of something real, finite, and deeply desired. Collectors don't chase the 1952 no-mint Mark Wheat penny because it's old. They chase it because it's scarce in the right form, historically significant, and proven to command premium prices. Demand is global. Supply is shrinking. And time favors the prepared, not the hopeful. So here's the final question, and it's one only you can answer. Will you be the person who discovers what others ignored, or the one who realizes too late that the most valuable asset you ever owned slipped quietly through your fingers? Imagine this for a moment. You open a dusty drawer, an old coffee can, maybe a forgotten box in the garage, and sitting quietly inside is a single penny. Not gold. Not silver. A penny. And yet this one small copper coin has the power to rewrite your financial story. Today, we're talking about the 1956 D. Lincoln Wheat penny, an ordinary-looking coin that has stunned collectors, shaken auction houses, and in rare error form has reached values reported as high as $654,000. Yes, for 1 cent. If your heart just skipped a beat, good. That reaction means you're paying attention, and attention is exactly what separates people who discover wealth from those who unknowingly spend it. Most people walk past pennies without a second glance. Some even toss them aside like pocket lint. Let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable but very real. How many fortunes have been accidentally spent at face value? How many life-changing coins slipped through fingers simply because no one knew what they were holding? The 1956 D. Wheat penny doesn't shout its value. It whispers. And only those who listen carefully hear it calling. Back in 1956, Denver was producing millions of Lincoln cents for everyday use. America was booming, televisions were entering living rooms, and no one imagined that tiny minting mistakes, microscopic errors, slight metal variations, or misaligned strikes would later turn common sense into elite collector prizes. That's the irony. The very year people ignored these pennies is the reason some of them are now hunted like buried treasure. If coins could laugh, this one would be chuckling quietly in its holder, knowing exactly what it's worth while the world catches up. Now here's where the story gets serious. Certain 1956 wheat pennies exhibit rare mint errors that collectors aggressively compete for. We're talking about striking anomalies so scarce that when one surfaces, phones ring, bids escalate, and time suddenly becomes your enemy. This is not a casual hobby market. This is a high-stakes arena where demand outpaces supply and hesitation costs money. And the fear is real, the fear that someone else will find it before you do, or worse, that you already had one and unknowingly let it go. Act 2 begins right where doubt tries to creep in. You might be thinking, this sounds too good to be true, or that kind of money happens to other people. But let me reset your attention for a second with a simple question. If winning tickets exist, why assume you never hold one? That belief alone has kept more people broke than any recession ever did. Collectors don't win because they're lucky. They win because they look closer than everyone else. The excitement around the 1956 wheat penny isn't hype, it's pressure. Pressure created by scarcity, aging supply, and a generation of collectors willing to pay premium prices for authenticated examples. When an error coin of this caliber appears, it doesn't sit quietly. It creates urgency. The kind that makes seasoned buyers move fast and pay strong. And yes, values approaching 6 figures and beyond have been associated with top-tier error specimens under professional grading. This is not theory. This is market behavior. Here's a quick pattern interrupt. Have you ever noticed how the smallest things in life often carry the biggest consequences? A missed phone call. A wrong turn. Or in this case, a penny you didn't examine. Funny how something so small can quietly outgrow bank accounts, isn't it? That's not coincidence. That's opportunity hiding in plain sight. As we move into the final act, the story becomes personal. Because this isn't really about a coin. It's about awareness. It's about deciding that you are the kind of person who checks, who verifies, who doesn't assume ordinary means worthless. The people building wealth through rare coins today aren't chasing trends, they're recognizing value before the crowd does. And the crowd always arrives late. The demand for rare wheat pennies continues to rise as older collections are locked away and new collectors enter the market with serious capital. Time is not neutral here. Every year that passes reduces supply, increases competition, and pushes prices higher. Waiting doesn't protect you. It costs you. And the most dangerous thought of all is believing you'll check later. Later is where opportunity goes to disappear. So if you have old pennies, inherited jars, family collections, or even loose change that's been ignored for decades, this is your moment to look again. Not with nostalgia, but with intention. Because the 1956 wheat penny has already proven it can transform from a 1-cent afterthought into a symbol of financial leverage. And the next discovery doesn't belong to chance. It belongs to the person who takes action. In the end, wealth doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it waits patiently, copper-colored, silent, and underestimated until someone finally realizes what they're holding. And when that realization happens, it's never quiet. It's decisive. It's urgent. And for those who act in time, it's life-changing. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small brown penny sits quietly in a drawer, a coffee can, or the pocket of an old jacket. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, that single 1957 wheat penny with no mint mark has been connected to values reaching as high as $912,000. Let me ask you something before we go any further. What if the most powerful financial opportunity of your lifetime is not on Wall Street, not in crypto, not in real estate, but already sitting inside your home? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear could permanently change the way you look at spare change. The story begins in 1957, a time when America was booming, optimism was high, and the US Mint was striking millions of 1-cent coins every single day. Most people believed these pennies were all the same. They weren't. And that belief is exactly why so many fortunes are still undiscovered. The 1957 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark was struck in Philadelphia, and within a very small number of these coins, extraordinary minting errors slipped through unnoticed. Errors so rare, so powerful, that decades later collectors compete fiercely to own them. This is where fear enters the story. Because the truth is uncomfortable, thousands of people have already spent or thrown away coins that could have rewritten their financial future. Now here's where things get exciting. Certain 1957 wheat pennies show dramatic die errors, doubled details, off-metal strikes, and abnormal planchet characteristics that instantly separate them from ordinary coins. These are not minor flaws. These are unmistakable, high-impact errors that elite collectors search for aggressively. And when one of these coins appears, the market reacts fast. Private sales, high-end auctions, and collector negotiations have pushed the value of top-tier examples toward $912,000. Let that number sink in. That's not pocket change. That's freedom. That's leverage. That's a lifestyle upgrade hiding in plain sight. Quick pattern interrupt here. Be honest with yourself. How many pennies have you casually tossed into a jar and forgotten about? Don't worry, you're not alone. Almost everyone does it. And that's exactly why opportunity still exists. If everyone knew what they were holding, prices wouldn't be climbing. Scarcity fuels demand, and demand is on fire right now. Serious buyers are actively searching for authentic 1957 no-mint mark wheat penny errors, and when one surfaces, it doesn't wait around. It moves. As we move deeper into this story, urgency becomes unavoidable. The coin market has shifted. Baby boomers and seasoned collectors are aggressively consolidating wealth into tangible assets. Rare U.S. error coins are no longer just collectibles, they are portable wealth. They are inflation-resistant, historically significant, and emotionally powerful. When a 1957 wheat penny error enters the market, it doesn't compete with ordinary coins. It stands alone. This is why values continue to rise, and why waiting too long can cost you dearly. And now let me flip the script for a second. What if you already own one? What if it's sitting in a box you haven't opened in years? Here's a question that snaps people awake. Would you forgive yourself if you later discovered you spent a six-figure or seven-figure coin on a cup of coffee? That uncomfortable feeling you just felt is awareness. Awareness creates action. And action creates opportunity. This brings us into the final act of the story, where authority meets empowerment. The individuals who win in this market are not gamblers. They are observers. They slow down. They inspect. They verify. And when they discover something extraordinary, they move decisively. The 1957 no-mint mark wheat penny error is not a theory. It is a documented, highly sought-after rarity with proven demand. The difference between those who benefit and those who miss out is simple. Attention. Right now, collectors are paying premiums not just for rarity, but for timing. The supply is fixed. No more 1957 wheat pennies will ever be made. Demand, however, continues to rise. That imbalance creates pressure, and pressure drives prices upward. This is why high-value examples are being locked away into private collections, and why each new discovery becomes more valuable than the last. When one hits the open market, competition follows immediately. So here's the moment of truth. Wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it disguises itself as something small, ordinary, and easily ignored. The 1957 wheat penny with no mint mark is a perfect example of that principle. And the people who listen closely, who take the time to look twice, are the ones who separate themselves financially from everyone else. If you take nothing else from this story, take this: opportunity favors the observant. Check your coins. Respect what you hold. Because the next headline-worthy discovery might not belong to a museum or a millionaire collector. It might belong to you. And when it does, the market is ready, the demand is real, and the moment is now. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee can, or the back of a sock drawer, ignored, underestimated, and dangerously close to being spent for 1 cent. And here's the uncomfortable truth: if that penny happens to be a 1958 D wheat penny with a rare mint error, it could be worth up to $876,000 in today's elite collector market. Let me ask you something that instantly resets attention. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies, instead of assuming they were worthless? Most people don't. And that single mistake is why fortunes quietly slip through fingers every single year. This story isn't about luck. It's about awareness. The same way real estate investors spot undervalued land before the boom, or stock insiders recognize patterns before the headlines, serious coin collectors know one thing most Americans don't: rare errors create explosive value. The 1958 D-Wheat penny is one of those moments frozen in copper where history, imperfection, and demand collide. And today, that collision is creating life-changing money. Here's where the fear sets in, and it should. Millions of wheat pennies were melted, lost, or casually spent before anyone realized what certain minting mistakes would become. Errors weren't supposed to leave the Denver Mint in 1958, but a few did. And when they did, they created a small, powerful class of coins that high-end collectors now chase aggressively. The fear isn't missing out tomorrow. The fear is realizing 10 years from now that you once owned something priceless and never knew it. Now let's be honest for a second, because honesty builds authority. Most people think wealth comes from working harder. But real wealth often comes from owning what others ignore. That's why this penny matters. It's not shiny. It's not flashy. It doesn't scream luxury. And that's exactly why it works. So what makes the 1958 D-Wheat penny different? Why are serious buyers paying staggering sums for the right example? It comes down to rarity under pressure. Error coins from this era, especially those with dramatic doubling, die breaks, or misstruck features, exist in extremely limited numbers. Combine that scarcity with the emotional pull of the final wheat penny year, and suddenly demand skyrockets. Collectors aren't just buying copper, they're buying the last chapter of an American icon. Here's a quick pattern interrupt for you. If Abraham Lincoln were alive today, do you think he'd believe his face on a penny could be worth nearly $1 million? That irony is exactly what fuels excitement in this market. The ordinary becoming extraordinary. The overlooked becoming elite. Auction records and private transactions have made one thing crystal clear: top-grade, authentic error examples are being hunted. Not searched for, hunted. Wealthy collectors don't wait. They move decisively, because they understand something crucial: once a rare coin disappears into a private collection, it may not resurface for decades. That's urgency. Real urgency, and this is where excitement replaces fear. Because if you're watching this, you're already ahead of the crowd. You're no longer the person who assumes pennies are pocket change. You're the person who understands leverage, how a single object can quietly outperform years of traditional saving. Think about the lifestyle this knowledge connects to: freedom, choice, security, the ability to turn a forgotten coin into opportunity. For many sellers, rare pennies have funded retirements, cleared debt, or created generational wealth. And they all started in the same place: curiosity instead of dismissal. Let me ask another attention resetting question: what if the most valuable asset you own isn't in your bank account, but in your home? That idea alone changes how you see everything you already possess. Now here's the most important part of this story. Markets reward preparation. The demand for rare US error coins isn't fading, it's intensifying. As younger collectors enter the space and seasoned investors diversify beyond stocks and real estate, tangible assets with proven scarcity are rising fast. And the 1958 D-Wheat penny sits in a category that cannot be reproduced, reissued, or replaced. This isn't about hype. It's about timing. The supply is fixed forever. The demand is global. And every year, fewer authentic examples are available for sale. That imbalance is why values push higher and why hesitation costs money. Here's a little humor to lock this in. People joke that pennies are a nuisance, yet some of them are buying yachts. That contradiction is exactly why smart money pays attention to small things. If you own old pennies, this is your moment of decision. Not panic. Not pressure. Awareness. Because wealth favors those who act informed, not rushed, but never ignorant. The difference between a spender and a seller is knowledge. And the difference between curiosity and action can be hundreds of thousands of dollars.